Yeah, bring a little time. So maybe. Yeah, yeah, no, I think people are just tired. Tired. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm exhausted. I just want out of here. New learning every day.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next panel of the day today, Women's Economic Empowerment in Green Value Chains and Access to Finance and Markets. So women are already the backbone of our green value chains, from farms to forests to circular economy enterprises. Yet they capture a small share of finance and markets. If we are serious about a resilient low-carbon future, then women must move from the margins of value chains to the center of decision making and investment. So today we will explore with the three distinguished guests we have, Ms. Dr. Nancy Omoyo, Anila Noor, Dr. Shanta Lane Carpenter. I think Bruna is right? Yeah. Who will be taking us through their experiences. And Nancy also is going to do a presentation about the topic. So, shall I start with quick, brief introductions about the panelists, and over to Nancy for your presentation, and then we'll begin the panel after the presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Nancy.
Thank you. So I can introduce. I just introduce myself. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming here. My name is Nancy Omolo, and I'm the Commonwealth Climate Finance Gender Advisor based in Mauritius, the CIFA Hub, and I'm glad to be here with you today.
Hi everyone, my name is Anila Noor and I'm based in Netherlands, managing director and founder of New Women Connectors, which is a refugee women-led organization advocating for inclusive policies, and we are trying to break the barriers for women from displacement, and I'm super happy to share this panel with this amazing woman.
Thank you. I'm Chantaline Carpentier. I'm the head of Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development and Trade at the UN Trade and Development, and it's a real pleasure to be among these wonderful women.
Nancy, over to you to kickstart your presentation, and after that, we will begin the panel shortly after that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so thank you. I hope I'm audible. I'll be doing a presentation on women economic empowerment in green value chain and how we approach it within the Commonwealth. So why does this matter? So this matters because key actors, systematic barriers. So women are essential contributors in green value chains worldwide, yet they really face persistent structural obstacles that limit their full participation. At the same time, this matters because women are the driving inclusive action. Empowering women catalyzes inclusive climate action and accelerates poverty reduction and strengthens community resilience against climate shocks. And global commitments. So this is also very important because it aligns to the Sustainable Development Goal, especially SDG 13 on climate action, and it also creates synergies across development goals. So just talking about certain current challenges that most women face, and maybe you'd like to sit a little bit on the side. Yeah. So some of the things that women current challenges include limited access to climate finance, market entry barriers, and also gender blind policies. So, for example, when you talk about gender blind policies, we're talking about climate and green economic policy often fail to recognize women's specific needs, roles, and contribution in development. For example, when you look at the policy frameworks, they lack gender responsive design. When you talk about women excluded from decision-making process, and also data gaps which obscure women economic contributions. And when you talk about market barriers, for example, lack of certification and quality standards and compliance. When you talk about limited finance, for example, only 2% of climate finance reaches women-led enterprises. So when you look at the global scale of global climate finance, it's around 600 billion annual in climate finance. So this finance flows, but when you look at this 600 billion, how much really goes to women? So one of the things that we recognize that, there's that 600 billion, yet significant gender gaps still persist. And in my next, it will just show you that the gender dimension, when you look at the numbers, only 2% women-led projects receive dedicated climate finance. 85% of decision makers are male representatives in climate funds. Then impact differential, women are more affected by climate impact at 68%. And when you look at the funding gap, less capital for women entrepreneurs at only 43%. I'll go fast because I know we have a short time. Opportunities in green value chains, so opportunities in renewable energy, in sustainable agriculture, and in circular economy. So we look at women as innovators across these sectors. Women are not just participants, but empowers developing creative solutions that addresses both environmental and social challenges in their communities. So from there, I'll just move slowly to at Commonwealth work on gender and climate action. What do we really do? So there, I'm just looking at gender mainstreaming in climate finance projects. So it just shows just a little bit. For example, in Maldives finance window, we supported development of Maldives proposal on women-focused blended finance window. In Namibia, we supported DCF concept note to ensure that gender was mainstreamed with it. In Fiji, we did Africa Fund a project proposal of $10 million US project with gender and youth focus. At Africa Methane proposal, Africa Development Bank, we did a methane proposal which supported Uganda, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Namibia on integrating gender in Africa development proposals. So we ensure that everything that we do, we really integrate gender, and that's globally. So this is just a strategic plan for Mauritius NDC 3.0. So when we talk about having women issues and policies being gender responsive, we also have to ensure that within the NDCs we involve the women groups, we involve the youth, and it's also multi-sectoral across energy, agriculture, infrastructure, and everything. Then this is an engagement with the Nigeria National Climate Council. So this initiative aligns with the Commonwealth Collaborative Network on Gender Responsive Climate Action, as it directly supports the network to strengthen institutional capacity. So in Nigeria, we are developing a national data hub on gender and climate information. And this cuts across all the sectors, and we're also going to work with the CSOs, we're going to work with the private sectors to ensure that they have the right data to inform policy. Then what is the call to action as I come to an end? So making green value chains inclusive and transformative requires coordinated action across all stakeholders. So we need to government mainstream gender consideration on climate policies, national plans, finance mechanism, and ensure women participation in decision making at all levels. Then we have the private sector, invest in women-led green businesses through dedicated funds, procurement policies, and supply chain partnership that creates equitable opportunities. And what about development partners? Support comprehensive capacity building programs and facilitate market linkages that enable women entrepreneurs to scale their green enterprises. So together, we can transform green value chain into engines of inclusive prosperity and climate resilience. So I come to an end with that presentation. Thank you.
So, to start with the first question, should I start with the first question? Excuse me, can you change the background? Adam, can you change the background? It's a good presentation. You should share with us. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. So, Nancy, to start off with the first question, with you, Nancy, setting the context, why is women's economic empowerment critical for advancing green value chains globally?
Okay, all right. Thank you so much again for giving me the opportunity. So actually, take into consideration, gender in green value chain, as I said, is very important because currently we find that women face challenges in accessing of their finance. And when we look at also the existing policies at the government level, really there's lack of the data. And when you look at the financial institutions, they've also not incorporated the specific needs of women.
So, Anila, what role can private sector partners play in creating inclusive supply chains? Yeah.
Thank you so much for this question. I think it's very much needed, as Dr. Nancy Onsho mentioned and presented. Till today, women are being impacted. Either it's conflict, either it's disaster, either it's economical distribution. Women are always lag behind because of capitalist colonial approaches the system working in. Recently, the funding cuts impacted a lot, and working with the refugee, women-led or displaced communities, I know how much they are feeling left behind. So if private sector raise up their motivation to invest on women, it will gonna benefit both whole of the society, because private sector can come and fill the gap, but funding limitation is there. But unfortunately, private sector is not involving directly. So indirectly, like we have intermediaries from INGOs or UN agencies who are actually taking most of the opportunity which should come directly to women-led organization. So I really encourage, like, private sector have to stand with the woman, not with the system.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Chantal, so what trade, procurement and certification policies can help integrate women-led enterprises into regional and global green markets?
Thank you so much. I mean, from a UN trade and development, you would not be surprised as the focal point within the UN system on trade, environment, finance, technology, that I'll address more the trade angle, right? So basically, for us, and I'd like to, sorry for the plug, but we produced a guide for policymakers to use trade measures to advance their NDCs. As the international aid is dying, this is the source of revenue that is most reliable for developing countries. And in the guide, we're suggesting that the environmental ministry nominate a focal point from the trade ministry, and that they look at their top 100 import and export, and then bring the appropriate stakeholder to the table. These are what? They're the line ministries, but they're also the women entrepreneur, the MSMEs, women-owned, and all the other men also. Because if the policies are made without these stakeholders at the table, they will be left behind, because the policies will fall to the crack. So that's for one of them. Second is women, as Nancy's data shows, are more affected by climate change. Because they're in sectors such as forestry, fisheries, tourism, that are more affected by climate change. And therefore, they're not going to be resilient to these prolonged crises and frequent crises. So it's imperative that we have dedicated proactive, intentional financing, but also technical assistance to these women so they can actually meet the requirement of the international market, so they can access the premium value of the green supply chain, not stay at the very beginning of it, but go up the value chain.
So that was great, Chantal. So going back to Nancy, what are the main barriers that women in accessing climate finance and how these can be addressed, especially when it comes to a low-profile working class women, who are not too educated and have a family responsibilities. I think they're not very well aware, So how can they overcome these barriers? Yeah.
I think for the women working at the lower level of the green value chain, I think there'll be need for capacity building. Capacity building so that, on how to access financing, on how to do the accounting, how to have relevant documentation, and where there's finances. And also, many banks have already now introduced green financing so that when you're doing some businesses which will contribute to environment conservation, then you have actually low rates, low interest rates on those kind of funding. So through capacity building, they'll get information on where to get money and how to get funding, and also increase their capacity so that they ensure that their businesses have licenses, they know the procurement procedures. I think that's very important. And just going on to that, when you look at the procurement, certain governments have actually put in place that for you to do some procurement with the government, it has to be a women organization, it has to be a youth organization, and it has to be people with disability, living with disability. And going beyond Commonwealth, I've also been involved in the World Bank project, whereby they've encouraged that every time they go to do a project at the grassroots level, the meals, maybe the teas, the coffees, or the lunch, is also provided by registered women groups. So there are already some efforts which are being made and which can be upscaled.
Anila, so how can the South-South cooperation and platforms such as GAG foster knowledge sharing and scaling of the best practices? Thank you.
Well, I think the important thing how to create a visibility, the importance indicators, because till today, when it comes to South-South, they also have internal issues, lack of including gender perspective, and women are leaving behind. So it's very important how we can promote visibility, meaningful participation, and I think I agree with doctors. She said age, gender, and diversity. We are promoting and advocating for age, gender, diversity because intersectional lens is missing. We are creating new competition of vulnerabilities. Who is more vulnerable, and we go and we save them. We really don't need to do that. We really need to bring intersectional approaches with a meaningful participation and how to create a visibility of not only success stories but other failures. But it's not been succeed. And what are the reasons why we are still today in 2025, end of 2025, we are still advocating for gender inclusiveness. So it's still like, how come we are not able to provide more economical solution for women, and we are making them to dependent on the system, dependent on their household. So that's, we really need to understand how we create a flexible open spaces and resources.
Thank you, Chantal. How can governments and developing partners design gender responsive policies for the climate smart industries, and how can multilateral climate funds and development banks ensure that women are prioritized in the green financing allocations?
Thank you. Sorry, it's so hard to hear. We have huge competition with the rain.
You have to shout. Yeah.
I know. So basically, in addition to what I said earlier, we need, so when the member states look at their NDCs and they start prioritizing their sector, it needs to be done with a gender lens. To identify the sectors where women are more vulnerable, more need adaptation, but also where there are more opportunities in the supply chains and in market access. So basically, women have, in our work on greening supply chain and low carbon supply chain in Africa, what we find is women have competitive advantage and are really involved in circular economy, as Vincent mentioned, on agro processing, fishery processing. So this is the area where we need to support in the NDCs if we want to support women, because this is where they're concentrated. And then it's supporting the cooperative, the self-help groups, the organization that support these women, so that, as I mentioned earlier, they can gain market information, meet quality standards, negotiate better terms, and then strengthen their position in trade. We have just today launched the UN Global Seaweed Initiative, where with Madagascar, Indonesia, France, Chile, and we hope Brazil will join tomorrow. And this is where the majority, a large majority of in the supply chain are women around the world. And so how do we support them? Yesterday we launched with Marina da Silva, Minister of the Environment, a bioeconomy challenge, another whole area where women are the major actors. So I think if the government, the multilateral development banks, the international organization need to favorize and ensure that we move from niche to mainstreaming these markets, because we know they're climate smart, we know they are they need to be adapted to climate change, and then we can also help the women that are helping us and feeding us.
Thank you so much, Chantal. So going back to you, Nancy, I mean, how can women entrepreneurs tap into the emerging green markets, and what role do digital platforms and trade policies play in improving the market access for women? Thank you. Yeah. So when it comes to market opportunities, how can women entrepreneurs tap into emerging green markets, and what role do digital platforms and trade policies play in improving market access for women? Thank you.
All right. I think it will be important for women to embrace the e-commerce. And when we talk about women, I think we're talking about women in general. But sometimes when you talk about women and you talk about youth, then you can see that they're separate, because we always say that the youth are very good in technology. But also when you talk about young women, they're also youth. And we can promote, like the young women, how can they use technologies so that they can use the e-platforms. So the e-platforms will allow them to access markets beyond the local areas that they are in. And in certain countries, actually, these e-platforms have really worked well for the women, because they've been able, some e-platform have been able to tell them, when you sell your products maybe like 100 kilometers from where you live, maybe you can make the double price. Because maybe even if you're selling tomatoes in the same place, maybe the market is kind of flooded. So how can they use these platforms to sell their products? How can they also use digital platforms to access finances? Because through digital platforms, they're able just to look at, how many transactions you've been doing, as compared to the traditional access to finances, whereby you have to have collateral, you have to have land, you have to have the title deed. So the e-platform really provides opportunity for women.
And what is your take on this? Yeah. When it comes to market opportunities, yeah.
Yes, I think there are so many opportunities, but these opportunities has to be according to the woman needs. I always say let women define what is the problem, because the system is not understanding the main barrier. So it's very important women-led initiative, women-led solution has to be defined by women. What is the problem? And they have such kind of environment resources, so they can even come together to create a solution and implement those solutions. Otherwise, we are just following the system. Okay, this is the idea. Women, if they do that, they will be succeeding. And no, this is a wrong approach. So every solution has to be led by, co-created by women, and they are more ownership for this solution. So the ownership should be in their hand to implement these solutions.
Dr. Chantal, what is your take on the market opportunities? Yeah.
Well, I think there's three. One is basically assess the linkages with other sectors.
Yeah.
Women tend to be stuck in these low value added, low risky sectors. We need to map the linkages with the stronger sector, and then basically support that. That would be one. So you need to conduct the value chain analysis to ensure that. For instance, as women in artisanal and small sector, connecting them to tourism, connecting them to, more the high demand market, the premium market. Second is clustering and networking. So ganging up so you can actually, move up amongst women, so they can access higher paying market, access network of and information on the prices and where they are, and the ability to meet demand. So what are the standards, what are demand out there? For instance, in the Gambia fisheries sector, there's cooperatives, they put in their NDC that they want to process their fisheries. This is mostly done by women, but they need solar panel. Could we train women in implementing, to be the one that deploy the solar panel system that will be needed to process the fish? And then the next one that they identified in the Gambia was using the waste to produce fertilizers, so they don't have to import fertilizers. Again, can we train women in producing, circular economy, taking the waste from agriculture, from fisheries, to turn it into valuable goods, so they don't, to get them up from that lower. And then I think I want to mention again the gender inclusive certification program. So we need to have certification program that take into account the specificity to women cooperatives, women self-help group, women in the more informal sectors.
Thank you so much. I know we don't have a Bruna here, but I was just wondering, does anybody wants to take one of the Bruna's questions? Basically, what are the successful examples that you could share with the audience? Just one example each from your experience. Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you so much. Just one experience that I would like to share is, and I didn't mention it, is about networking and cooperative for collective bargaining. So in many countries in Africa, women have come together to form cooperatives. Through these cooperatives, they've been able to get capacity building from research institutions, from financial institutions. Through forming these cooperatives, they've also been able to have maybe weekly contributions or monthly contributions, which has contributed to thousands, a much more bigger amount of money that they've been able to kind of invest. So it's really important to promote women to form groups, because when they have groups, they have cooperatives, it's very easy to reach them. And for example, if we would like to know how do they get climate information, then we'll be targeting the existing groups. And can they go beyond and register these cooperatives or these groups so that they are able also to get financial support? And also they can use these cooperatives for green certification so that they can sell their products at a higher market in the prices. Thank you.
For me, I will give actually two, and why I wanna give these two examples. One is we are running a project. We lead, we nurture our home, our earth, where we are unpacking and simplifying the solution. So community, especially women from the displacement, they can understand what the climate issues, what is the climate finance, what is the green transition, and how they can build their knowledge and confidence to be involved in these discussions. And we are also giving enhancement and understanding of policymakers, so they can understand women's needs and how they can get out of their comfort zone and to go to them, instead of they are waiting those communities to come up with the sharing their stories, but make a flexible approach so they can work with them as a co-designing. Second example I want to say, recently, I think hardly 1 week ago, I was in Kenya, in Nairobi, and we invited refugee women-led organization, and we were doing the impact of cutting research with them, and they are sharing how they are taking not double or triple but 4 roles to keep the advocacy work in the gender-based violence. So they are becoming entrepreneurs. They are running their own farms. They are running their salons. They are running their small community football matches where they are contributing to give the winning prize to the other community members. how these women are actually taking the lead, empowering each other and going with the solidarity. Like, in the African verb, if you wanna go fast, go alone, but if you wanna go far, go together. And that's, I think, missing. But unfortunately, as I said, this system is so colonial and capitalist, and they are not understanding. Women need, so women should have the empowerment and the seat on the table, so they can define how this system should be run by them as a co-creation, not as a only beneficiary or victim.
Yeah, maybe I'll just close with our example from on circular economy. A woman-owned business that basically use seaweed to produce non-plastic substitute, and also fishing net and ropes for women, well, for everybody, but we're testing now the rope and the non-plastic nets that are biodegradable with a cooperatives of women in Nairobi, outside of Nairobi. So we're engaging them in the research, and they're part of the research, so they can see the result. And then we're working with them through building that trust to then elevate them and see, and instead of selling just the seaweed to raw, to transform it into value-added products such as non-plastic substitute films, so to trade other food items that now take plastics.
So before we, conclude the session, any questions from audience? Any questions? Do you want to find out anything that you're curious about? What we discussed? You have a question?
I would like to know, in your work, especially in Commonwealth and also in your, how you are including the indicator of involving refugee or displaced women in your work.
Thank you very much. In my work within the Commonwealth, basically how Commonwealth work is that my job is the Commonwealth Climate Finance Gender Advisor based in Mauritius, whereby we have Commonwealth Climate Finance Unit. So we have national advisors based in various countries. So how they work with these countries is to raise for them the international financing, and this depending on the priority of a country. So a country can have money for the agricultural sector. A country can have a proposal which look at dealing with disasters like floods or drought, and how do they deal with the issues of GBV at that kind of level. So directly, I've not been working on the GBV issues, but before joining Commonwealth, I did a World Bank project. And World Bank projects are very strict. Before you start a project, you have to look at the project. What impact will it have on the community? So it's very strict on safeguarding. Is it going to increase the gender-based violence? How will you deal with the gender-based violence? So I realized that before the project is approved, all those issues of gender-based violence are all incorporated into the process. And I like the fact that you're really bringing in the gender-based violence. Sometimes when we talk about climate change, we forget to talk about the gender-based violence. Actually, it came more during the corona period, because they said that when women stayed at home, most of them face a lot of violence. And not only women, even children. There's some children whereby there's lots of violence in the family. So during COVID time, they face it more. And we see this also when there's disasters. When people move to the rescue centers, and I've seen this in Kenya during the flooding around Lake Victoria, many people are complaining, or women are just put together, sometimes with the men in the same room. So, how do you ensure that, you're reducing gender-based violence in those kind of circumstances? So even the interventions need to take that into consideration.
Thank you very much for a very insightful panel. I wanted to go back to the issue of financing for women cooperatives who are organizing around energy and the biggest issue that we have experienced. Put it closer. Okay. So the biggest issue that we have experienced is lack of money that goes, even as much as they would be so organized as groups to have energy, and we have had programs that train them, for example, in solar maintenance, etc. But it's probably 10 years ago. And to have money that goes towards these groups is usually a challenge. How, in your experience, would organizing go beyond just having women in a collective and having that collective have meaningful access to financing? Thank you.
Anthony,
Maybe just quickly to say, with my other hat, as the former co-chair of the Interagency Task Force, UN Interagency Task Force on Social Solidarity Economy, we just issued a report documenting the financing of social solidarity entities around the world with example from more than 60 countries. So I would refer you to the report. It's on the UN Interagency Task Force on Social and Solidarity Economy. That's my short answer.
Okay, thank you so much, and for highlighting that as much as women are trying to come together, sometimes they are always faced with financial challenges. In one of my projects under formerly DFID and now FCDO, they were actually looking at that through climate change. So they're promoting climate resilient crops like sorghum and millet, and even chicken value chain, whereby they were giving certain money for the banks, because you find that banks basically does not want to give money to women farmers. So we're working through aggregators. Aggregators are people already working at the community level, maybe collecting the sorghum, collecting the millet. But now we wanted to have formal systems whereby the banks understand the project, they give that loan to the aggregator, then the aggregator gives the loans to the farmers in terms of seeds, in terms of training and all that. So when these people harvest the crops, they sell it back to aggregator and make. And for example, one woman said, ever since she got married 20 years ago, she's never had a bank account. Through our program, she was able to sell her sorghum in the market, educate her children, and for the first time she went on the counter and she was very proud to show that she had an ATM card. And even the banker could call her name to come forward and bank, like it was equivalent of $100,000 in a bank account for the first time. So these are some of the innovative things that exist. Thank you.
sure. So thank you so much. So with that, okay, that's fine, yeah. So with that in the mind, what I would like to conclude is that green value chains, especially under climate smart agriculture and nature-based solutions, present a unique opportunity to shift power and create dignified, future-proof jobs for women, but only if finance and market becomes more genuinely accessible. So I have 3 points to everyone for the call of action. Point 1, if you redesign finance, market access and policy incentives with the women at the center, we don't just empower individuals, we unlock entire value chains. So the next decade must be about scaling and transformation, but not still piloting it. It will be like embarrassing if you're still piloting for the next generation. And the call action point number 2 is women are not beneficiaries, but they're co-creators of a resilient green economies. Let's invest in them, partner with them, and design value chains that reflect their leadership. And then for me, the call action point number 3 is a future where women have equal access to finance and markets is not a dream. It is the fastest pathway to resilient communities, competitive green industries, and climate smart development. And let's choose the future together. Thank you so much.